as you know, there's a bunch of government funding around. What you probably don't know is that there's some that is not immediately included in this sort of COVID response stuff that most accountants don't know because it's course related. So the government's actually been giving some pretty good financial support in terms of if you're willing to put people through courses, what you can claim in subsidies, but most people don't realise that they're eligible to claim it. So you could potentially get up to $28,000 per employee, and there is no limit on the number of employees that you can put through. Now, some people will go, oh, yeah, we've seen that it's the apprenticeship thing and we don't have any apprentices. But give me 5 minutes to show you why it is not just about apprentices and why you could actually use it if you're hiring a new manager or a new salesperson, or you've got an existing office manager or anything like that. So it's not just new workers and it's not just for apprentices. That's probably the important thing to stay up front. Now, just a couple of housekeeping things before we go into it. So it'll be probably 30 minutes maximum. I will try to be as quick and keep it as straightforward as I can. But feel free to ask questions, please, because we kind of live and breathe this stuff. So it's pretty simple to us. But if I accidentally use any jargon, let me know. If I say something like, do you know you can get a wage subsidy for your casuals if you just do a couple of things? And you say, what? I'm not sure that that's right. Then check, ask, I'll clarify. I really want to make sure that at the end of this, you come out of it with some clear answers as to what you can do. And at the end of it, you will have 2 options, really. My objective in today is to give you enough information so that if you want to go ahead and do this yourself and claim it yourself, you absolutely can. If you look at it and go, too complicated, I've got too much to do, then we are happy to work out a way to put the claim in for you on a sort of no win, no fee kind of a basis, but we'll talk about that briefly at the end anyway. So we're going to cover the wage subsidy opportunity. We're going to cover the conditions and what's excluded so that nobody wastes their time. There's also then that unlocks a bunch of other linked funding. So we will cover that as well. If you're getting a wage subsidy, what else could you potentially get? And there's federal money and the state money. So we'll talk about the difference. We're not going to cover that short-term COVID release like the 40% for New South Wales and stuff like that. This is on top of that, and you can get it as well as that. So if you're getting a 40% wage subsidy in New South Wales right now for your employees, you can get this additional 50%, which basically means you're getting 90%. Actually, what would be really helpful is if anybody wants to pop, now, if you put things in the chat, then other people can see them. If you put them in the Q&A, then only I can see them. My colleague Rachel is here on it as a co-host on mute, just in case my internet misbehaves or anything like that, and she can take over. Hi, Rachel. Otherwise, if you want to chat to us, either of those things are fine. I'll keep an eye on both of them, and anything that I miss, Rachel will make sure I've covered before I get to the end. What would be handy though is, I know we approached particular industries because we thought you guys had the best chance of getting the most people through on this wage subsidy. But if you would like to pop something in the chat to just say what state you're in, and or I mean as in location, not as in stressed, what state you're in and what industry you're in, that would definitely help me make sure that I give you examples in this that are relevant to you. So up to you, but if you just want to pop something in there, that would make it more useful. So why are we doing it? A couple of reasons. It's our area of expertise. We're claiming it ourselves. I have all my employees on this wage subsidy. We're in a small company, only got 5 people, but 5 people getting 28,000 each is not to be sneezed at. Plus we're getting another 20,000 from the state government for a couple of people, which I'll explain to you as well. So claiming it ourselves, obviously after this session, you might get us to help you do it, or you do it yourself. And the other thing that really kind of gets up my nose is that when this first came out, and I'll show you some numbers in a moment, the big companies swept in and grabbed it all, which is what always happens with this stuff, because they are set up, they've got human resource departments and finance departments, and they can quickly put the information together and claim it. So we're on a bit of a mission at the moment to make sure that some of the smaller companies actually get their share as well. And it is starting to turn, more smaller companies are starting to get it, which is good. Let me just quickly check the chat here. So you got Victorian Hospitality, yeah, poor things. New South Wales Real Estate, Tasmania Fire Protection, Northern Territory Spray Gas Irrigation, awesome. Okay, there should be some good opportunities for all of you, and I will use some of those examples. Right, a little bit of background. As we all know, and anybody who has been watching any TV over the last week has known that there were some flaws in JobKeeper. There were some really good things about it. It kept 700,000 people employed. But late last year, JobKeeper was coming to an end. And there were some identified flaws. Like, one was that employees were getting paid whether they came to work or not. And from the employer's point of view, that was less than ideal. And the other thing, that was no value added in the sense of, it helped businesses sort of pause or be in hibernation, but it didn't grow any skills for our workforce. And anybody, especially in the Northern Territory, I imagine anybody who's in anything outside the main capital cities is finding it pretty difficult to recruit at the moment, and actually probably even hospitality and things in the capital cities. So this funding is for training places, but that's important because I'll explain in a minute. It's for training, not tradies. So as long as you're willing to put your person on an online course and they're willing to do a course, then you can get this subsidy. So it's actually quite smart. It's really about upgrading the workforce and giving employers money. So it sort of kills at least two birds with one stone. So beginning of October, almost a year ago, the wage subsidy came in and government put up $2.8 billion and said, we'll put in 100,000 places to subsidise people who want to train their staff. Now, initially, especially the smaller companies were under the misunderstanding that it was just for like trainees and apprentices. So it was only for sort of 17-year-olds and things, or for trades. And so they didn't really jump in and grab it. So within the first month, by the end of October, 70,000 of those places had been taken by big companies who just put their entire workforce, new staff and existing staff, on it. So by the end of October, government tightened up the criteria for existing workers. So you can still put some of your existing staff on it, and I'll explain how and what courses. But there's also some interesting stuff in what they call the new worker criteria, which covers casuals and part-timers and things. So continue to listen if any of the following applies to you. If you're going to hire anybody between now and the end of March, or if you've hired anybody since the start of June, or if you have any casuals, or if you have any part-timers, or if safety or health is in any way related to your business. And I don't mean that you're in that industry, but if you're a real estate agent and, workplace health and safety is important because you've got to do safety stuff for open houses and inspections and testing for drug residues and COVID safety plans. Basically, any business that's doing a COVID safety plan at the moment, you can pretty much say that safety is relevant to you. I'll tell you why that's important shortly. So by May this year, there had been 130,000 places used, even though there were supposed to be only originally 100,000. So in the federal budget, they uncapped it. They put another $2.7 billion into it. That's with a B. Another 170,000 more places, and they extended the commencement deadline until March next year. So what that means is that if you put any of your employees on this program between now and the end of March, then you will get 12 months from when you sign them up. You will get 12 months worth of wage subsidy. Originally, the wage subsidy was all going to finish at the same time, but now it's 12 months from when they start. Hopefully that's making sense so far. Please chip in and tell me if it is not in any way. So you've got a little bit of time. However, there's a handful of courses, which I will show you in a moment, which are available for all of your employees, including your existing ones. And that list is getting shorter and shorter because I think government's kind of realizing that people are using it up, and so they're trying to make it a little bit harder. So I would encourage you, if you've got, there's urgency in two ways. One is existing worker courses will reduce. The other one is that if anybody has started with you, say in June, you've got 90 days from the day that they started to lodge your expression of interest for this stuff. And after that, you have a much smaller number of courses that they are eligible for. So if you've got any staff that started in June, have a very quick chat with us afterwards, and we'll make sure that you're at least on the list and you don't miss out. So the program is called Boosting Apprenticeship Commencements Back. You might have heard of it, quite a few people have. Not just about apprenticeships, not just about commencements. The reason that the government used this scheme for it is that they already have a mechanism to give out wage subsidies when they're training people. And so they've used this mechanism to make sure that it gets out as quickly as possible. So this wage subsidy, in a nutshell, it allows any business, charity or council to be reimbursed up to 50% of wages for every person that you enroll in an approved course. And the course can be an online course. It doesn't have to be going off to college or anything, to a maximum of 28,000 over the year. So you get half their wages up to 28,000 a year So if they're on 56,000, you get 28. If they're on 57,000, you still get 28. If they're on 30,000, then you'd only get 15. You get half of whatever up to that. And it's paid quarterly. So it's paid over 12 months. It's capped at 7,000 for each quarter. So it won't help you with any immediate cash flow issues that you're having today, but it will certainly reimburse you back money. So what are we now? Early September. So anyone who comes on now, you will get your first payment is in the pay at the end of each financial quarter. So you'll get your first payment in October of half the wages from today until the end of September. Then you'll get another payment in January of half the wages for the next quarter. All your new employees pretty much should be able to get this. And that, by the definition of new, I'll explain it in a moment because there's a few criteria. And some of your current existing staff as well. So the key condition is that they have to enroll in eligible courses. Now, if anyone wants to go and Google it and check up on it, here's the thing, it's boosting apprenticeship commencements. What you'll find is that people Google it and then they get confused and go, oh, it talks about Australian apprentices all the time. So it says, encourage employers to take on apprentices and trainees. What's important is that you understand, I guess, the legal definition, if that's the right terminology, of apprentices and trainees. It's basically any employee that you've got that you've put on an approved list of courses. So it's kind of a win for everybody. I think since this whole pandemic, our government has learned some of the lessons from other countries, perhaps not all of them. And so they've figured out that to basically keep the economy going and perhaps get themselves re-elected, that the better that they can boost employment, the more chance that they're going to have. It's also, make sure that businesses are sustainable, that you're adapting, you're progressing. It's obviously a win for employers because you get money and you get skills, but it's also a win for the employees because they get a bit more job security and they have something for their CV in terms of a qualification as well. So eligibility, let's just get a bit more specific in that. And we'll just check again for questions. Feel free to throw in questions if I'm going too fast or too slow, just tell me, please. It's that weird old thing, isn't it, where you're just talking to yourself in front of a computer. So eligibility, any employer basically, except for state and federal government departments. So councils are okay, but state and federal governments are not. So charity, business, doesn't matter. Anywhere in Australia, any industry, any business size, except for a sole trader. Unfortunately, if you are the only person in your business, then you can't deem yourself to be a trainee because there's nobody there to train you. So as long as you've got, but if you're a sole trader and you want to hire one employee and get them for half price for a year, then that's not such a silly idea. Any full-time staff, I need to update that, Rachel. I keep saying that and I haven't. Part-timers as well, and casuals I'll explain in a moment because actually I might explain that now. So if you have got somebody who is casual and they're doing regular casual hours, and by regular I mean it's got to be a minimum of, well, it doesn't matter what they're doing right now, but if you had enough work for them to give them 60 hours a month of work, so averaging 15 hours a week, then you might want to consider calling them part-time instead of casual because you'll get half their pay back. So that's a pretty good incentive. And the chances are, I'm not an industrial relations person, I'm a scientist originally, but the industrial relations rules in a lot of cases will say that if they've been doing the same sort of hours for you for ages, they're pretty much part-time anyway, and you're probably going to end up having to pay them holiday pay at some point if they get cranky with you and leave. So my calculations for myself was better to pay people as part-timers and get half the money back for a year than to try and determinedly stick to calling them casual. And they don't, the roster can still be flexible as long as they're doing 60 hours a month. So in terms of staff eligibility, they have to be an Australian citizen or permanent resident, or they can be a New Zealand citizen as long as they've been here for 6 months. So you might be able to tell by the sophisticated way that I pronounce my vowel that I'm not originally from here. I think most New Zealand citizens probably have been here for 6 months at the moment because we can't go home anyway. And it can include your professional staff and your experienced staff, as long as you're giving them, so you might have an accountant who you put on this program and they do a diploma of business or an HR diploma or something like that. You might have tradies already who you want to put through some sort of leadership supervisory kind of a program. There are quite a few options for experienced people as well. Let me just check back to the industries that you guys were in. So Fire protection, Nicole, do you want to just tell me, do you guys actually do the installation of the fire protection equipment? Is that what you do? And I will just check around. Okay, I had to do a little calculation for you just to see how much it would be. Okay, thanks, Nicole. Appreciate that. So here is the money. If you've got 5 employees, so I'll talk in a moment about the courses that are eligible and things like that, how you do it. In some states, in some situations, you can get the courses for free. In other situations, you might have to pay. It depends on a whole bunch of things like where you are, what industry you're in, what jobs your people are doing, all that sort of thing. So I've worked this out based on absolute worst case scenario, where say you have 5 people, you have to pay full fees for all the courses. You don't get any of the additional state incentives or anything like that. You're still going to come out with $111,000 over for the year from your people, which is nice to have. Now, if you've got, say you are in Queensland and you're anywhere in regional Queensland and you're in any of the you're not in any of the really affluent demographics, is that the right word? So if you're not in Brisbane, Gold Coast or Sunshine Coast, basically anywhere else in Queensland, and you hire someone under 25, then you probably get another $20,000 for each person. So you get 28 plus from the federal government plus 20 from the state government. If you're in Victoria and you hire someone under 25 or over 45 and they're an additional person, then you'll get either 10 or 20,000 from the state government. So this is not counting any of that. This is just worst case scenario. You only get the wage subsidy. You don't get any payroll tax rebates and you don't get any work cover discounts, which you normally would. Then you're still going to come out with over 100,000. And obviously that just goes up and up. If you get 10 people on, then you're getting close to $250,000 for not doing terribly much at all, really. So a couple of interesting statistics about the claims so far. 60% of the employees who have been signed up to this program so far have not been in traditional trades. 40% are small business, yay, starting to catch up. 20% have been employees over 35 years old, so it's not just for kids. Construction, accommodation, and manufacturing have been the ones that picked it up fastest. Construction, probably because they hire a lot of apprentices and they know how that stuff works anyway, so they quickly jumped on it. Interesting fact that I picked up, actually I looked at it 2 months ago, I looked at it again this week. So 2 months ago on Seek, there were 184,000 jobs being advertised. I looked again this morning and it's down to 179,000 jobs being advertised. So the impact of the lockdowns in Victoria and New South Wales are starting to bite a bit. What is interesting though, is that the number that are paying over 100,000 per year have gone up. There's now like 59,000 of them paying over that. So 2 things to think about. One is there's fewer jobs for lower paid people. The other one is it's getting really hard to get skilled people and people are having to pay top dollar to get them, as I'm sure all of you will have experienced. So if you can get an extra $28,000 towards their wages for the first year, it just makes you a little bit more competitive when you're trying to actually get somebody. Maybe you can afford to pay. You can do whatever you like with that 28. If you want to pay 10,000 of it to them as a bonus for staying for 6 months or whatever, then you're allowed to do that. It's up to you. I was talking to someone the other day who's in a remote area and they're actually going to use the money to pay for accommodation for their staff to try and actually attract them to come and work there in the first place. So existing workers, this is the tricky bit. So, and this is a bit that's going to be most relevant to everybody here because presumably you've all got current staff. So if you have got somebody who has been permanent full-time with you since before the start of June, so they might be 20 years, it might be 6 months, but more than 3 months ago they started with you and they've been permanent full-time the whole time, then they are what is deemed to be an existing worker. And there's only a very limited number of courses that they can do that make them eligible for this. But most businesses will have at least one people, if not a handful of people, that you could reasonably put on those short list of courses. So if you go Googling it to find out existing workers, because this has been subject of some debate, is it says that the criteria for them to be counted to get the payment is that they either need to be doing a trade or they have to go from casual to part-time, full-time, or part-time to full-time. But here's the thing that most people don't know. When they say trades-based Australian apprenticeship, that is a specific term, and there's a 13-page list of trades-based Australian apprenticeships. Most of them are the obvious things like plumber and carpenter and things like that. But there are a whole lot of other quirky things in there too, like from dog groomer to cybersecurity and stuff like that. I'd have to check and see whether fire services and spraying and stuff is on there. It could have something there. But I'll look for you guys after if you want me to. But it's 13 pages. It's called Appendix I. And so it's basically a certificate 3 or 4 that are related to areas that government actually cares about. And here's one, we approved it. So once they get approved, they come back. So this one here was an existing worker, did certificate 4 in civil construction supervision. Company's going to get paid a wage subsidy for them, even though they've been there for a zillion years. So a couple of examples of courses that actually are relevant for existing employees. There is a Cert 3 for fire protection on Appendix 1. Thank you, Rachel. All right. We might talk to you about that later, Nicole, if you like, because you might, if you have got anybody who hasn't got that, you could get a wage subsidy for any employees that you put on it. We'll show you how to code it properly and everything so that you can get it. So, for example, if you've got an office person, HR person, office person, or whatever, one of the courses that is eligible for the wage subsidy for your existing staff is the Certificate 4 in Workplace Health and Safety, which I touched on before. And the policy specifically says that if someone is office management, human resources, supervising other people and responsible for their safety, any of those types of things, then they are considered eligible to do that. So the first thing to think about is, do you have anybody in your existing workforce who you would like to put on a safety course and get 28,000 wage subsidy for you? The course might cost you a few $1,000s, but it'll be like 3 to 5 as opposed to the 28 that you get back. So still well worth it. There's the free work health and safety courses that are funded are not eligible for this. So it does have to be a paid one. But there's some examples. So you might put your, safety person or your HR person on the work health and safety. You might put your admin person on a dual qualification of safety plus business, where they just do a handful of extra units and they come out with both. You might put one of your supervisors on a dual qualification of leadership and safety. Oh, Rachel's busy hunting through Appendix I. There's a certificate 4 in irrigation too, apparently. What do you know? I don't know. Tell me, you guys, if you're already using those qualifications, but if you have got anyone who hasn't got them, that might be an opportunity. So new employees is a whole different ballgame. There are lots and lots of courses that you can choose from for your new employees. Let me give you a real estate example, is probably the best one. So as you know, so I think it was Gail who's in real estate. When you hire someone in real estate, well, certainly here in Queensland, I used to have a real estate license in a previous life. You can't even put someone on the front desk to hand out keys until they've got their certificate. So there's no way that you'd want to put them on like a 12-month traineeship to do it, because they wouldn't be any use to you for 12 months. I don't know. Tell me if it's the same in New South Wales. It certainly is up here anyway. So what you would do in that case is you would, any new hire, whether they're a prospective agent, an office person, and junior, whatever, even an agent who's already an agent that you're poaching from somebody else, you would bring them in. Yes, that's the same in New South Wales. And this is relevant for others as well, but specifically for real estate. You would hire the person, you would put them on a Certificate 3 or Certificate 4 in maybe business, entrepreneurship, something like that, qualification as part of this traineeship, because this wage subsidy only lasts as long as the course lasts. So if it's a 12-month course, you get 12 months of wage subsidy. So you really want to string the course out and make it as long as possible. So you put them on a long, slow Certificate 4 in entrepreneurship to get the funding for the whole year. And then you put them on a very quick Cert 4 in real estate or whatever it is these days to actually get them licensed. So they can actually do 2 qualifications at the same time, one under this umbrella, one under the other. And you could use the money, if you wanted to, from the wage subsidy to pay for the other course. Tell me if that made any sense at all. Hopefully it did. But that's true for anybody. So if you've got a course that needs to be done quickly, I'd look at getting people to do a dual qualification, do one that's eligible that you get money for, and then the other quick one. So there's a few examples there of what you can do for new employees. Now, let me explain, though, the definition of new. So anyone who doesn't matter whether they're part-time or full-time, if they started with you in the last 90 days or they start before March next year, they included. Anybody who's part-time, who you're turning into full-time, you can get the wage subsidy for. They could have been part-time with you for 20 years doing 4 days a week. And if you decide to make them 5 days a week, then you'll get half their salary paid for the next 12 months. And anybody who's been casual, as I touched on before, and you've turned them into part-time or full-time, you get a wage subsidy for them as well. one of the things that we've been doing for people, I'm happy to do it for you guys if it's helpful, is saying, send us your staff list, tell us what their status is, what their job is when they started, and we'll figure out what courses are the best matches and give you some options so that if you want to go back and talk to them, at least you've got something tangible to show them. So here's the process. If you want to do it yourself, this is what you do, or we can help you with it. So first thing is to have a look at the courses that are suitable for your business and the courses that are allowed for your location. So there are 4 lists that you need to check for the courses. There is Appendix I, which is the federal government list of courses that are funded for existing workers. And then there is the state list of what they allow traineeships in. Then there is the list of what the states will allow for existing workers. Then there is the list of training providers that are approved to run them under this program, because RTOs, registered training organisations, there's quite a few of them. There's only some that have got contracts under this program. And then there is the list of training organisations that have got funding so that they can deliver the course for you for free. Some of these courses, nobody has funding, like health and safety. Some of them, like if you're in New South Wales and you want to do a business course and it's for a new person, then you could probably get that for free. So go through those lists, work out which courses. Have a look at your staff and any new staff that you want to take on, and are there any skills gaps maybe that you'd like to fill with the course? You might go, I want to hire this person, but I'd like to get them some social media marketing training. So you might look at a cert for in marketing for them, or a diploma of social media or something. Actually, cancel that. I don't think the diploma of social media is on this list, but the cert for in marketing is. You might want to hire an office junior and just put them through a Cert 3 in business so they just learn the basic office admin skills. Look at your existing staff and basically say which ones of these would we like to put through and what courses are on Appendix I for them. So general businesses, you're going to get work health and safety, and then you've also got the things like the fire services and the ones that Rachel came up with as well. There's also civil construction supervisors and things like that are existing workers. So they're all quite niche courses, but depending on what niche you're in, we'll figure it out. Check that your staff meet the criteria, that they are, permanent residents or Australian or New Zealand citizens. Supervision is something that's required to be ticked off in this process. So you've got to have somebody supervising the person who is doing the course, not supervising their course content, but they've got to have a boss basically. So the CEO can't do the course. Then check for other state-based incentives, which you could probably get some more money. So most of the states at the moment have got incentives for hiring young people, old people, various other combinations of people. And a lot of those have got time deadlines on them, either in terms of like the Queensland one, for example. You can get them on the wage subsidy if they started in the last 90 days, but you can only get the extra 20,000 if they started in 12 weeks, which is actually 84 days. We had some poor man the other day that we talked to at like day 92 or something. So he'd missed out on 28 plus 20 was, I think, Rachel, $48,000 by about a week. That was a bit sad. Okay, choose your training provider. Find the ones that got funding, choose an apprenticeship service to sign them up. We had fun and games with one the other day where they're like, no, they're not eligible. They were casuals. And we were like, yes, you are. And then they came back and went, oh, no, you're right. Because the problems that the apprenticeship centres have got is they're great, but 170,000 people signed up on this in the last few months. They have hired so many new staff, and a lot of them don't know the nuances of this stuff. They've got enough to go out and sign up people, but anything that's a little bit fiddly, like casual workers or office people doing health and safety and stuff, we need to kind of explain to them that, yes, it is inside the rules. Organise sign ups, lodge the wage claim, and then claim your other incentives. Now, the last bits are relatively easy. Once you've in this process and approved, then getting the money is actually pretty easy. So we can help with most of that if you want, up to you. So once you've actually got registered, then you just get a text and an email every quarter, which reminds you fill in a form. If anyone did a JobKeeper claim last year, it's the same sort of a thing. You basically confirm that that person still works for you, you upload their pay slips, and then you get your money in the bank in the first 14 days of the next month normally. Now, a couple of questions that we always get asked, and we're nearly at the end, so please drop in any other questions that you have. If you have been wondering, these are the ones that we had when we did this last time. What if my employees don't pass? Actually, I think the guy said all my employees are a bit stupid, which wasn't very nice. But what if they don't pass? Actually doesn't matter. You still get paid. They have to stay engaged with their course because the training provider's got an obligation to report back and cancel the wage subsidy if they're not even doing anything. But as long as they're chipping our way at it, and and every couple of weeks or month or so they're communicating with their training provider or sending in an attempt at something, then you will still get paid as long as they're still enrolled. If they leave halfway through the time that they're working for you, you don't have to pay anything back. You get paid up to the day that they leave because you lodge those pay slips, and then it stops. So say you put someone on now and they left in February, you would get paid for them until February. And then if you hired someone to replace them, as long as you got them in by the end of March, you'd get another 12 months from the date that that person started. Make sense? Is it very time consuming? No. In terms of supervision, somebody just needs to be able to sign off to say, if they say the subject is, communicating in the workplace, they go, yes, Fred can communicate in the workplace. You just sign off that they are competent. Okay, lots of questions. Let me see them. How good are the courses? What if our staff don't want to study? Are there easier and harder courses? And do they have to go to college? Excellent questions. So they don't have to go to college. Depends on who you choose as a training provider. And there's a range of training providers in this stuff, from your kind of tick and flick, do the bare minimum kind of ones, to the ones that will actually go, let's actually teach them something useful. And no judgment from me, that's entirely up to you what you want to choose in terms of my probably personal opinion would be, if you're going to do it, you might as well get something out of it, but your call. So there are a range of courses, from relatively simple, like certificate 3 and hospitality, or I shouldn't say that's simple, that's not very fair, it's quite hard, but certificate 3 levels, for a business admin junior, right up to diplomas for sort of middle managers and things like that. Probably normally you'd probably expect them to spend possibly an hour or more a week on chipping away at their course, and so you don't want to do them really fast, because if they do them too fast, then the subsidy stops. If your people don't want to study, then there's a few different things. You can't make somebody. That certainly says in this program that there's no coercion, or there's another word I forget they had allowed, but you can't make them. But you could either put them together in a group and go, let's work on this 1 hour a week all together. For the sake of half their wages paid, it's probably worth it. Well, it is worth it. I was talking to someone the other day. She's got 40 employees, looking for another 40. They're flat out busy. And she's like, there is no way that I could give any of my people an hour off to go and do this course. And we sat down and did some math, and it's like, you know what? You could hire, instead of hiring 40 more employees for the same price, you could basically hire 80 more employees, which would free up your other people's time to do it. So hire one extra on the wage subsidy and then free up the time of the existing ones. It's basically a matter of working out the maths, say what works better. So no, it's not going to take a lot of your time. Okay, last thing, a couple of things I just wanted to say before we wrap up. So this bureaucracy, I am presuming, is not your core business. And I'm presuming that you've sat here and gone, yeah, that sounds cool, but that sounds like a big headache. So what people I've talked to so far have been either busy because business is booming, because there are some businesses that, as we know, are booming in these times, or because things are busting. Like in these kind of COVID times, there's not much in between, really, is there? All those businesses that were just chugging along in the middle have either flown or crashed. So you are absolutely welcome to do this yourself. However, I keep running into people whose applications got rejected because they were coded wrong, or because they were given, because there are some occupational codes and things you have to put on the forms, or they've been given bad advice, especially on the existing workers stuff, because the apprenticeship centres have got so many new staff, they don't necessarily know how to lodge them properly. So my suggestion would be that you get us to do the setup at least. So just like your accountant would have done for JobKeeper if you're eligible, we do all the setup, and then once a quarter, all you have to do is upload the pay slips. So you carry on with your core business. When the first grant money hits your account, you just forward 10% of the amount that's been approved to us. You keep the rest, and you just carry on doing what you do, which presumably is not managing this stuff. So risk-free guarantee, basically. If you want us to have a look at it for you, you don't pay us anything unless you get approved, and you don't pay us anything until you actually get money in your bank, because I also understand what it's like for cash flow for a lot of people right now. So from here, the first step is to do a quick assessment of your eligibility, which we can either send you a form to fill out to just put a few details about your staff, who you are, what you do, or if you're too busy, or you're like me and you're not really a forms person, which sounds ridiculous when I'm doing this for a job, but we can interview you over the phone to gather that information if you would prefer, whatever's easier. And then after that, you can decide whether to proceed and whether to do it yourself or whether to get us to help. So I would suggest, even if you haven't decided whether you want us to help you or not, get us to do the pre-assessment, because we'll either come back, if it's a really simple one and it's just one person for one course and it's going to be easy, then we'll just say to you, you don't need us, just go fill out this form and claim the money. And if it's more complicated and we think that you'll be better off to get us to do it because we know that we can get you more money than what you'll get for yourself, then we will definitely tell you that. So you can email Alyssa, my colleague, who on that email address on the screen there, which is alyssaw@sagestrategy.com.au, ALYSSAW. Good question from Kimberly, is that 10% of just the first payment or 10% of all the payment? 10% of all of it, but we are happy to cash flow it. So if you want to just pay us 10% of what comes in each time it comes in, that's absolutely fine. I understand that you don't want to pay all the beginning of it to us and the training provider. Alyssa, if you are on, can you pop your mobile number in the chat for people in case they just want to give you a call, if that's easier? There she did, thank you. She's reading my mind. So if you want to just give Alyssa a quick call and figure out whether you might be eligible, we're all working from home, so no office number, or its office number will go to voicemail at the moment. But give Alyssa a call, 0451 733 418. It's in the chat. Or email us. If you want to just email us, we can send you the initial self-assessment form if you like, and then you can just flick that back to us and we can decide from there whether it'll go. Do we have any other questions just before we go? I feel like I have not paused for breath. All good, I think. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I really hope that was helpful. Thank you. Oh, that's Alyssa who said it was great. Of course you think it's great. You work for us. But thank you anyway. So thank you, everybody, for coming. I really hope that either you get yourself some money or we can get you some money. Let's get out there and make sure that Harvey Norman and Kmart doesn't claim it all. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.